Peace, Queens. Thank you for joining us for this month's Queen Call. As always, we will start off in prayer. Oh God, I seek thy refuge from anxiety and grief, and I seek thy refuge from lack of strength and laziness. And I seek thy refuge from cowardice and niggardliness, and I seek thy refuge from being overpowered by debt and the oppression of men. O God, suffice that which in me what is lawful to keep me away from what is prohibited, and with your grace make me free from want of what is beside you. And we say, Amen. So again, thank you for joining your Queen Call this month. At this time, I would like to open up the mic to our beautiful Queen sister, Sister Malika Phoenix Ali. Sister Malika.
Yes, good evening, sisters. I am so excited to be on this month's Queen Call, just like I am every month, because this sacred space that has been created by the Sisters of Queendom Come is truly a blessing, and it's an honor to be with you today. This Queen Call is extra special for me because the sister that we are welcoming into this sacred space is a most powerful sister. She is so inspiring personally for me. For me, she is the epitome of femininity, of grace, of goddesshood, and especially of creative behavior. I am an advocate for artistry and creativity and the healing power that it possesses, something that we as women have direct access to. We are the manifestation of creativity. We have been gifted with the gift of creating and nurturing. And for this sister to have found her voice and have found her power, and in that power, empowering other women and other individuals to access their creative ability is just absolutely phenomenal. Her presence is a gift, and it's inspiring, and her words are soul-stirring. She is none other than our sister, Sunni Patterson. So I want to thank her for being on, and thank each and every one of you for being on to participate in this phenomenal Queen Call. At this time, we're going to have Sister Sadia, our Queen Sister Sadia, tell us a little bit more about this sister, Sunni Patterson. Mm-hmm. Sister Sadia?
Yes, ma'am. I am so excited. So on with the engaging story, voice and presence. New Orleans native and visionary Queen Sunni Patterson has been the featured performer at many of the nation's premier spoken word venues, including HBO's Def Poetry Jam and BET's Lyric Cafe. She's also shared her work on the Arsenio Hall Show, performing the song Black Unicorn with rapper 2 Chainz and singer Chrisette Michelle. Queen Sunni has had the privilege of sharing her work on several international stages, including Ghana, West Africa, Jamaica, Trinidad, and the Netherlands. Her poetry has allowed her to be a speaker at the famed Momentum TEDWomen 2015 Talk Conference in Monterey, California. Inspired by her words, Beats by Dre commissioned Queen Sunni to provide the soundscape for tennis great, our beautiful sister, Sister Serena Williams, her workout wireless beats commercial, and the congratulatory piece for Williams' third U.S. Open with Congratulations, Serena, featuring Sunni Patterson, and you can YouTube that. She's an advocate for holistic healing and health. Queen Sunni's work is dedicated to the growth and evolution of humanity. As a highly sought-after lecturer, workshop facilitator, and performer, she deliberately uses art as a tool to recognize, address, and eliminate all forms of oppression. Queen Sunni has trained under great scholars, allowing her to become a certified personal life coach, CPC, a certified instructor of Qigong and Tai Chi for health, and a diligent student in the healing and spiritual arts. Believing in the transformational role poetry and spoken word plays, Queen Sunni's mission is to aid in the awakening, the revival, and the remembrance of our gifts and voices, enabling us to move to a greater space of self-empowerment, creativity, and actualization. So without further ado, I would love to present our beautiful, powerful, spiritual sister, Queen Sunni Patterson.
Oh, wow. That was an introduction. Giving thanks just for being even asked to do the call and just the consideration. My dear sister Wakidi, who I've known for a bunch of years, just to call and ask, and for everything to be aligned in the way that it is. So give thanks for that. And my sister Malika, give thanks for you and for the words that you said. I think we're going to go with just to speak about what this call is about as far as the power of our stories, and just what this means and for telling it. I found a piece that I did a while ago, and I just want to read it. It's kind of all over the place at this point. If you were to see my journal, it's more scratch-outs and scribbles and all of these other kind of things. So bear with me as I kind of navigate through all of my stuff here. But it says we all have that special spark, that thing that makes each of us the most unique piece in the fabric of universal oneness. It's our own personal blueprint that gives us individuality. It's such an innate part of us. It's buried so deep in us that it's very possible to overlook or even forget that it's there. Before we know it, the special spark becomes buried underneath the rubble of the rush and chaos of everyday life. We become so used to the heaviness, so used to the voices muted by fear and self-doubt, that to speak out is to risk danger. Truth is, it is more dangerous holding breath. It's more dangerous folding over and bending backwards just to fit inside of the boxes that have been created. So here's to realizing that you do not fit inside of boxes. You dismantle them. Here's to knowing the risk of living and being outside the lines and still having the courage to move toward your highest self. Your confidence is expanding. Your creativity is growing. Each step in your journey is filled and fueled with the rhythm of your own narrative and sound. Even though you hold the myths of mothers and grandmothers past, you honor them by remembering and creating your own story. It's one that only you can tell. There may be uneasiness at first. There may be angst. Your voice may tremble. Your knees may buckle, but pay it no mind. These are the first steps of reclaiming power and increasing your capacity for greatness. You have come to know yourself in a way that you never have. Fear is releasing its grip, and before you know it, you are no longer constricted by its paralyzing force. There is success in your stride, because in your growth, you now know that what you once called failure is really achievement seeking a greater platform. You are evolving, finally realizing that the landscape of your journey is ever-changing. Where you once saw dissension, you now recognize the beauty and richness of your path. You move in and on purpose, unleashing a wonder of magnificent expression on the world. Everything is set ablaze just by you showing up, acknowledging your own spark. So when the world in all its taunting urges you to forget your magic, tries to lull you to sleep with its cadence of mediocrity, you remember your colors and all of the boxes you dismantled, knowing that nothing extraordinary can come from being chicken-hearted. Your bravery lights the way, unleashing a wonder of magnificent expression in the world. So with that being said, we'll begin with, I don't know, I know we have an organic kind of setup, so I don't know what will actually come next. If there are questions, statements, I don't know, announcements, whatever it is that will come next, just know that we are all here and giving thanks for being in a space and creating this kind of space and wonder for women to come and listen and heal and be and be and be and be and be. So I don't know what's next. You go with me.
Sister Sonny, thank you so much for sharing that powerful piece. I mean, it speaks so much. It speaks so much to the power of creativity, and not just creativity, but the power of telling our story. And there's a quote that says your tragedy can become your triumph. And this idea that in this world that we're living in, where there's so much darkness, and we're in need of illumination, but the best way to transmute those negatives into the positives is through some form of artistic production or creativity. So to be able to translate your tragedy into a triumph, is a powerful thing. So yes, ma'am, what do you think about that? As women, so much about our reality in this dispensation of time, our creativity has been robbed from us in so many ways. We're not traditional in the sense of, those lost arts of sewing or, the quilt circles that our ancestors used to have, holding on to those pieces of creativity. How do we in this time tap into that space, that power of creativity as women?
Yeah, it's so many. Of course, artistry is such a great way to do that, to tap into, our own pulse and our own story, but to also tap into, the pulse of the people around us. I think that's the role of the artist as well, to connect the dots and to help others connect the dots, to have a language that's created around it. I have people, that'll say all the time, well, I'm not an artist, or I'm not a singer, or I'm not a this, I'm not a that. And, it's like, well, when you were a baby, when you were in your crib, you sang for your parents to come, whether it came in the form of a scream and holler or cry, it was a song, when you were given sticks as a baby, you banged something out, you created music, though we may not have seen it as, parents may not have seen it as music in that sense, but certainly, that was it. So it's really just a matter of being still enough to really go inward, to tap in and see what is your sound, what really is your song, and taking the time to do it. We have to take the time to do that. It's a tedious thing, and doing the work of the heart is not always an easy thing, because we have to kind of take the stuff out. We buried so much, so it's things that's on top of it. So we have to kind of clear out. It's like cleaning out a drawer, in your house, cleaning out a closet, and things like that. It takes time to do. It's tedious work, and the heart is not a pretty thing. Well, I'm saying it's not a pretty thing because though to many people it is. But what I'm saying is that it's not this very smooth thing that we draw. This very cute figure, that we draw when we're writing our names and sending I love yous out and things like this. The heart is this ugly, bloody kind of chamber, that pumps all of this blood and, it's responsible for all of this work, and all of this. So when we're tapping into who we are and what is our purpose, what is, our Creator's sound even for us? What does this voice sound like? We have to tap into these kind of things. What does it sound like? What does it look like? How do we see our future? Are we, even imagining this? Do we believe we have this kind of power to tap into it? So it goes to just that. What is it that we believe about ourselves? What's the internal dialogue that we're having with ourselves? And at what point, do we see that this dialogue is not serving us? And that's a heavy piece, to know that we have talked ourselves into a hole, to know that we've talked ourselves, into truly like almost hating ourselves even more. This is on top of the voices that linger. This is on top of the images that we are force-fed through media and everything else, So that now here we are with this kind of language that we are giving to ourselves. So it's truly about this, switching the script, changing the language, changing how we first and foremost speak to ourselves, see ourselves, and how we see our Lord in the process. And do we see ourselves as one with that essence that created us? So even when we create these kinds of affirmations, there's an affirmation that I write and say, which is, you know, I am one with the master who creates, you know, powerful masterpieces. Therefore, I too am a master to create powerful masterpieces. You know, so, and it's something that we, you know, it brings us into alignment with this essence. You know, certainly this essence didn't create us to just be, to move around with our heads down and our shoulders shrugged. You know, it was for us. Just like this call is something that's created to, you know, have a space for women to see ourselves within one another, even though we are across, you know, timelines, we're across city and state lines and things like this. But if we truly believe in the power of oneness, there's an essence that flows through us and that connects us one to another on this particular call right now, and that goes beyond the phone line, you know. But it's truly about a divine line that brings us all into alignment, one to one another and one to our higher selves.
Yes, ma'am.
Sister Sonny, I have a question.
Yes.
This is Sister Sadia. How did you develop your voice, not necessarily your poetry, but your voice, to be able to connect to your oneness?
Oh, you know, that's work. You know, it was moments and time of it. So just like, you know, we were talking about before too, sometimes this tragedy as well, you know, things that kind of come, things that happen to us and for us even, you know, in order to gain these voices. But I can't say that everything came from, just like all of us, I don't think that we can say that everything came from this aspect of tragedy, right? Because we are born, again, like in the piece when we're saying this innate spark. You know, so I'm grateful, too, to have had a family, whether in churches, whether in masjids, whether in bimbes and these kinds of, you know, cultural circles that affirmed me as well, you know, that didn't tear me down. I can say that I had more voices to build me up than to tear me down, and to allow me to create more of myself, you know, to allow me to find out and figure out and give me the space to do that and do it in a way that wasn't where they didn't bash me, you know, where they may be questioned, of course, because things look very different. You know, in some cases, you know, things kind of take us away from, you know, the religions that we grew up in. So there were, you know, of course, always questions from people. But I'm grateful that I had a family, a mother and a father, a grandmother and sister and brother and everybody else to be able to say, okay, well, you have the space to do that. And thank you for doing it. You know, so that was one thing. But then, you know, growing up and as I became older and going through things, even whether it was failed relationships, marriage, and, you know, everything else, and then even coming up where it's having, you know, my children and things like this, and being remarried to a beautiful and powerful man, you know, in his own right, to have that, all of these things still create. So I think it's still a matter of, it's constantly evolving and being created and recreated, created and recreated, created and recreated. And I allow myself that space. But again, that took, you know, it takes courage to do that. It takes bravery to do that, because, again, going back to the piece, you risk, you know, there's something that you risk. You know, you risk being seen a certain way. You risk the things that you may hold, and the people, some of the people that you may hold very dear, who may not come along that journey with you. So it takes some risk. You know, it takes stepping out. It takes some bravery to tap into that voice. I know it took me, you know, failing several times. If we consider it failing, I don't know if I can consider it failing, you know, but I definitely consider it was a mistake, meaning that, just like when you're, in acting and everything, when you, okay, take one, bam, take two, bam, and then coming through martial arts and everything, you do the same thing over and over again. And the novice, right, would say, we just did this. Here comes the master. And the master is like, no, you didn't. Because each time is anew. Each time is something different. Each time you're tapping into something different. So you didn't do the same thing. You're doing a new thing. So, having those experiences to be able to find it, and forgiving myself in the process. That's what the real thing is about, forgiving myself and forgiving who I thought was the cause of what could be tragedy, of what could be, the bully, right, in a sense. But giving just that forgiving in the most divine sense of the word forgiving, not this oppressed and oppressive and oppressor's view of what forgiveness is, but forgiveness in, again, the most divine sense, which for me I have to define it as I'm forgiving. I'm forgiving up this old notion of myself in order to gain a new perspective, right? So it's truly about forgiving. And even when we come back with the forgetting, it's not an oppressor's view and an antiquated view of what forgiving and forgetting is. Forgetting goes to I'm forgetting a new notion. I'm forgetting a new perspective. I'm forgetting, a new way of seeing abundance, a new way of seeing love, a new way of seeing forgiveness, a new way of speaking, a new way of holding on to this voice, even in the physicality of the voice. After I had my children, specifically my son, my voice did something very different. Like it was certain, being younger, I used to be able to sing. I had the voice of an angel. And I dare somebody say I didn't. But I'm saying, I had this beautiful voice, right? And after I had my son, it was something, it got it just shifted. Something happened. It got deeper. It got something. It was just a certain something, a certain difference that came in it. And it would be certain notes I would try to sing. Like, I used to be able to sing a song. I used to be able to do, all of these kind of things. But it came with the kind of growing up, and it came with and then at the same time, it also came with a certain kind of constriction, if I can say that. And I can say that because it was a time, at that particular time, I was going through so much emotionally as well, in how I was moving around the world, just in the country. I was traveling so much, pregnant, and at this point I was huge. I wasn't nothing but 110 pounds, wearing boots before I had my son. Like I was 200 pounds on delivery day. So, it was just a bunch of stuff I was carrying. So these things shifted, my voice, my breath, all kinds of stuff, I had to move from my beloved city of New Orleans. At that particular time, we were stuck in another hurricane. It was just all kinds of stuff that was going on that enabled a certain sound even of my voice that I can say also played a part. So it's embracing, though, all of these things, embracing everything that could, for some people, could set us up for the okie doke, but it's about being able to, make sure that we're staying in this form of prayer, staying in meditation, staying in offering, these kinds of supplications, and being, prepared to receive the beauty of what other sisters would deposit in us as well when we're going through these trying kind of times, So all of those things, I think, shape my voice and help to still shape it as I'm growing and evolving even now,
Now, Sister Sonny, you talked about your family, your babies. Now, I watched videos and you rocking your baby as you rocking the mic at the same time.
Right.
What is that like, trying to still be connected as a woman to your children and your family, but you also have this deep calling and this spiritual purpose in your life to be able to tell your story worldwide and universal wide?
God gives us exactly what we need. So I know that for a fact. My son, just moving around the world with him, there were times, it was just like kind of like not a question. You got your bag, check. You got your shoes, check. You got the baby, check. All right, let's go. This kind of thing. It wasn't.
That's right.
It just wasn't a thing. Yeah, it was just you go. And that's how it moves. But I would write. I would write all the time. I write prayers out. All the time, and whatever comes. I make sure that I sit and allow whatever Spirit says to me about my child, about myself, about my ancestors, about situations, whatever it is, and I sit and I write it, as it comes, as the Spirit is speaking. I'm writing during these times, so it was something that I always ask for, that grant me this ability to balance this, in this way. Grant me, just show me how this can be, how this can be done. Because certainly people will be like, oh, you won't be able to do that. You won't be, that can't happen, or something like this. And it's like, I just never understood how. Like, how can it not happen? How it's supposed to happen. If it's happening, it's supposed to happen. So that's always the thing. But with it, I'm making sure that I'm creating, even if I'm not just creating and writing a poem or something like this. I'm making sure that I'm creating something. Even if it's, and giving myself the permission to have the time to know seasons. There are times when it's just to be still and just to sit. There's a time to sow and a time to reap. So I make sure that I'm tapping into what's my sowing season, what's my reaping season, what's the time where I'm just supposed to be, listening and being. Do I paint something? Do I, am I just, something? I like, painting and creating. I like baking and all of these kind of things. So it's, it's a matter of knowing that creation does not stop with just this particular art form, for me. Even, being a mother, we're creating everything. Milk is being created. You understand what I'm saying? That's we're, moving. We're not even thinking about it, but our body is doing it for us. So honoring this process as well, and honoring what it is that we have to give, as mothers and as wives, moving and just navigating space in the world, So making sure that, and then just taking care of myself, that came over time, I can say, because there were times when I would move around. I could be in 12 different cities in the course of 13 to 14 days, and would still be moving, still nursing my son, and still creating on the road and being on these panels and everything. And I was worn out. Do you understand? I was worn out. But what I didn't do was say that I was worn out. I kept going because I felt like that is something that I needed to do. Like, I need to. But see, here ego comes, right? Here the ego plays a part in this. Because truly what I needed to do was, listen, you can sit down. It's time to sit down. I guarantee that if you don't do it, whoever else is supposed to do it and whoever else is called to do it will stand up, because it will be their time to do it. Like, but the ego is like, no, I have to do it. See, that's how we set ourselves up, too, as mothers and as wives and just women in general. This is what we do, even if we are not a mother, even if we are not a wife, so to speak. But we are still midwives to one another, right? We all, because each one that is here. Each one of us is birthing something, whether it's an idea, whether it's whatever the project is, whatever this thing is, we're birthing something. So just being on this phone right now, we are all midwives to one another. And so it goes to, just this thing of how do we truly get to the space, right, where we are saying yes when it's a yes and no when it's a no. I had some of my mamas, they say, listen, they say you have to practice, saying no. You can say it with a smile, no. You can say it, with a serious face, no. Look in the mirror and say it. Just practice.
Right.
Practice saying it. Smile with it, laugh with it, and all of these kind of things. But that's important because there was a time when, like I was saying, going through, these cities, and this one particular run from Philly to I was leaving from Arkansas to Philly. My voice was gone, right? I was, and then again, with all of this, I'm nursing, and my son, of course, is with me. So it's my voice. I felt my voice leaving, but I didn't honor myself enough to say I need to sit down and not say anything. But what I expected, right, was for the people to say, Sonny, sit down. It's okay. Her voice is. I wanted an advocate here, right? But see, I wasn't brave enough to advocate for myself, right? So here I'm losing my voice, and I know I still had this other city to go to, losing my voice, and there was still, can you do this or say this? What about such and such? What about this? Right, and say this, and I'm still going, right? Still going. Bam! I make it to Philly. My voice is out. My voice is gone. I'm literally pushing everything out to make a whisper. And it's still not coming out. But people are reciting things with me. People are, all of these kind of things. But I was expecting. See, this was an unreal expectation because, see, I was expecting this particular thing of others, and I did not expect this or do this for myself, which was a problem. Because it went to, so here you are, this very thing that grants you this kind of power, the very thing that allows you to move through, this very thing that that sustains, that allows you to sustain, your living and everything else. Here it's gone. You've lost it. Because now here it is. You're constantly moving. So I expected somebody to say, stop it. Stop. Please, just let her sit. But I didn't do it of myself. I didn't honor myself in it. So I've learned this over time that, there has to be an honoring, of the self. One of my sisters and I, we were just talking earlier. Self-care. Self-care is the best care, which is the truth. They tell you that on the plane, off top. Put your mask on before anybody else, before even your children, before anybody else. Put yours on first. And that's a real way to live. Because, see, what we're taught, too, as service workers, what we're taught in being in this, this area of servitude is you have to do this for the people. We always objectify the people, right? And then I had one of my teachers, he would say, change this language. Anytime you say for, it creates such an ugliness because you don't need to do it for people. People can do it themselves. It's not our job as healers to do it for people, but it is our job to help people. This is what like coaching. That's what coaching is about. You're not playing the game for the players, but you're encouraging them along the way. You might, gift them with, give them some maybe different techniques and things like this. But what you're doing is pulling out the right answers that they already have within them, right? And what we know with teaching all the time is that being a great teacher is being a great student first and foremost. So it always goes into it like we have to be great students, and in being great students, what comes with that is, knowing and learning more of how to honor and take care of ourselves, in the Yoruba tradition and the tradition that I practice and initiated into. We speak about, it's honoring our ancestors. But how we're taught is, like these ancestors are, entities of the past. But the reality is that, we honor our ancestors, past, present, and future. What does that mean? Past, the ones who, of course, have already transitioned. Future, our babies who are yet to be here. But present, that is us, walking around, being, breathing, living right now in this moment. So in order to honor them, best is by honoring ourselves. So it's an important. I forgot what the question was now that you done asked. But
well, let me ask you another question, Sister Sunny. So, I see that you are very involved in personal coaching, individualized coaching, the healing practices. So talk about the healing processes and telling stories to the people, for us to the people, because any time, and even my children, I have teenagers, and they call you Mama Sonny. They don't even know you, but they already calling you Mama Sonny. And my 15-year-old, she she's into the music, and so when she heard the Chrisette Michelle and the 2 Chainz, and they play that over and over and over. Tell us about how do you heal, or the process of healing in your stories?
Well, the story, of course, is the most important piece, because if everybody wants to tell their story, and only you can tell your story, unless there's a person that's truly tapping into who you are, what you do, and all of those kind of things. But it's so important in the process, because the more we speak about it, there's certain things we have to speak about in order to, one, we're acknowledging and recognizing that this is something that has existed, something that exists. And, when you speak something, it tends to grow legs and walk off. It can vanish. So I'm going into now this aspect of fear. When we speak about this very thing that we may be, afraid of, whatever the thing is. We have people who are like, don't talk about it, don't say, I can't say anything about it. But, sometimes, see, when you speak to a thing, it'll vanish. It has no more, it has no power. It knows that it's found out. At this point, oh, it sees me. Yes, we see you. And the divinity in me acknowledges that, we can send this thing back to its native nothingness. Go back to where you came from. This kind of piece. But it, it's so important in hearing other people, because this is what connects us. This is these words. There's a saying. It says sometimes we need these stories. We need stories sometimes more than we need food. And sometimes that's what it is. A person has a word within their story. We hear, we can hear the triumph. It goes beyond, the what happened. It goes beyond the, just that the tragedy of it, the horror of it, into the holiness. It goes beyond horror into hope. Let me write that down. I like that myself. Beyond horror, no. But it goes,
go ahead, write that down.
It goes beyond horror, which is a real thing, into the holiness of it, to where we're able to see, what truly exists in it. And some people will say, no, that's not the case. But see, it goes back to, again, this aspect of forgiving, because, see, as we're saying this story, and when we say certain things in particular groups, especially groups that, affirm us, this is, again, where we begin to see that the ache of it can leave a bit. The ache can go away, because we have people that will affirm. We have people that can love us through it. We have people that can give us another word through their story, right? And we see how they got up. So it gives us something. To hear these stories, these stories of triumph, these stories of justice. How we are just. And I'm speaking about with ourselves. The justice that we show ourselves. Because it's one thing to expect something of a system, whatever that means, right? We'll get into, I guess, more of what a system means. But it's one thing to expect that of a system that has never really given anything, right, to or for us.
Mm-hmm.
But it's another thing when we're looking in the mirror and the same thing, the same aspect of justice, we're not practicing with ourselves. You know what I mean? Like it's a particular thing that we're expecting. You know, we're so hard on ourselves sometimes. You know, it's like, I should have it. It's such and such. It's this. I should be doing this right now. It should be happening right now. It should this. Like, just be gentle. You know, and this is I think what telling stories as well is about. You know, being gentle with ourselves, allowing the story to unfold. You know, allowing the ending even to unfold in a way, because the story is still going. You know, it's still something that's being created. You know, still something that's being created, and other people help us with it. There are more characters that come in. There are more characters that are introduced. You know, there are more people that allow us to see more of ourselves through our story, and who reflect our story back to us, which is a very important piece. Because it's one thing to just talk to yourself. There's another thing to talk to someone else by seeing yourself in this person. So it's one thing to talk to yourself. It's another thing to talk to yourself, your capital S self. You know. So I think that's important. That's a huge part. One thing that we do within in schools and theater is story circles, which is a great piece for the community, because it allows us, one, to know communities that we're going into. And the story circle was implemented by a beautiful theater group in New Orleans that started first as what was called Free Southern Theater, which evolved. I can use that word, into what's called now Junebug Productions, which began and started, you know, in the civil rights era and movement and this whole piece. So it's still, you know, going strong, and those same practices of story circles are used throughout the country to aid and facilitate, you know, healing through the power of telling the story.
Mhm.
Yeah.
I have a question for you, sis. It's coming from one of our listeners. She is a phenomenal poet as well. Her name is Magnificent, and she wants to know, how does negative emotions affect creativity? Emotions like shame, regret, feeling embarrassed about things that have happened in your story.
Oh, it affects it a whole lot, you know, because the thing about creativity is there's an openness, you know, and vulnerability, you know, that has to occur. And also when we're dealing with the creative process, it's a process to a feeling. So you have to, you know, bear witness to these feelings, you know, and you need all of them to move into what it is that you are requesting of yourself, and what it is that you're requesting, you know, of the universe as well. So it's something when we're dealing with this thing, because and let me back up, because I'm big on affirmation. So affirmations are a much needed thing as well, because it allows us to talk to ourselves. And I'm big on talking to myself. Now, people talk about people that talk to themselves, but now I talk about people who don't talk to themselves. You know, that's my thing. Like, you must be crazy. You don't talk to yourself, something got to be wrong with you. You know what I mean? But that's an important piece in how we are developing and how we're moving and how we are healing. You know, in courses they tell us, you know, to heal is to make whole. So in order to make whole, then, you know, we have to we gather all of the parts of us. And again, see, and it might be just the ugliest, oh my God, the most horrific, the most, you know, all of these, everything. But you know, it's still something that is there. And there's still these pieces of us that were still created, it still happened. And we can take all of these things and still become more, expand. Because that's what we're doing. That's what this creative process is about, expanding. This is how God is known, you know, through the expansion. And the expansion comes by sometimes, the opposition, whatever the opposition is, you know what I mean? So I don't know if we would see the growth or if we would experience the growth if everything was smooth, right? Now, it doesn't mean that everything is not supposed to be smooth, but it does mean that we are given the opportunity to show what it is that we've learned by rough, right? By being in rough. I hope I'm saying this, easily. That's like with retreats. We say, at the retreats, these are mountaintop experiences, but your life is not determined by how you live on the mountain. Your life is determined by how you live in the valley. So how do we take these mountaintop experiences to the valley and still preserve and keep ourselves, right? So in the midst of creation and in the process of creating, taking this unseen thing, right, and putting it into this soil, in order for it to grow this beautiful flower, this aspect of manifestation. So we've taken this unseen thing, right, and brought it to this space of darkness, because that's another thing, right? It goes into it is here, alone and in the dark, that we create something new, right? So it doesn't necessarily mean that we need to be lonely, right? But it does mean that in the midst of our solitude, in the midst of beginning to master this aspect of solitude, we have to be confronted with all of these parts of ourselves in order to have a whole creation, in order to move through fully. Because that's always the thing with poetry for me, or any piece of art. For me, I can hear wonderful poems or wonderful songs and wonderful singers and things like this. But the question that I always ask is, do I believe you? Do I believe you? Because the people, we take for granted that people all have this innate ability to know things and to see things, and this intuition that we have. It may not be fully, developed and formed. We may still be kind of moving from a space of questioning, this intuition that we have. But the reality is that there's always something. People know when we are being genuine. People know when we are authentic. People know when we are moving, in our full and highest self. People know when we're moving on purpose and when we're moving in purpose. You feel it. It's a thing. It's like that in the creation process. It's like if you don't get chills by the thing that you're, asking and pleading, with God and this universe and everything for, grant me all of these things. Oh, if I can, oh my God, we ask for these things, right? And then here it is, where it's like, well, I asked for this, but it just didn't happen. And then, we ask people, in this process, well, where were your feelings? What happened? How did you feel about it? And people will say, well, I'm really not a feeling kind of person. That's not me. And it's like, no, of course you're a feeling kind of person. Of course you are. We wouldn't be here, if it was. Of course you are. But it goes to maybe your feelings are preoccupied, right? Maybe, it's something that. So maybe we need to go back to the drawing board. Maybe this is not something that you really want, right? So we have to look at these things and really be honest, with ourselves. We lie to ourselves on an everyday, sometimes every moment basis. So we gotta, we gotta get to this thing and really, know who we are, and know what it is that we're wanting and believing. I tell people that all the time. Listen, if what it is that we're asking for, and really trying to align with, if it's not giving us, when we think about it and start giving thanks for, because the hard part is giving thanks for it before it gets to you. The hard part is having that kind of faith. The hard part is starting to have, the celebration, beforehand. That's what it is. They say gratitude paves the way.
That's right. I agree with that.
This is about moving. Yeah, this is about moving and truly giving thanks and honoring every part of who we are in order for the creation, in order for what it is that we are creating and what it is that we are desiring, whether it's a poem, whether it's a song, whether it's a child, whether it's a whatever it is. I don't care what it is. But we have to, begin to see ourselves first as whole. That's the hard part. The hard part is seeing ourselves in spite of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and that can be a hard thing because we've been so trained to approach this thing from, a backwards kind of way. When the reality is that we have to begin giving thanks for the things in advance, because it makes way for it. It settles it. It makes way for it to be here. Like it gives it legs. It puts wheels on it. It puts wings on. Not even wheels. It puts wings on it at this point. To where it's like, here you go. So it's like if it's in that process of giving thanks for these times, because even when we have this kind of shame, even that is something that it has nothing to. It's not you. It's based on a word from someone else about you. Mm-hmm. It's based on this kind of guilt. It's nothing that'll kill a person worse than guilt, shame, and loneliness. That's the truth. Mm. It'll silence you. It'll kill you. It really will. People are like, oh, cancer, oh, this, oh, that. But all of that even stems from this ability of fear. All of it stems from this thing of guilt. All of it stems from this thing of shame. We look up and what's happening. Our stomachs are gathering, everything. We got cysts, it's tumors, it's fibroids, it's, we got breast cancer. It's all of these kinds of things play a part because we have to look at what it is that we're holding. What are we holding? So at some point we have to, there's real freedom in release. There's real freedom in letting go of these, unrealistic expectations, unrealistic goals. So that's even a question. People say, well, how do I know that my goal is not unrealistic? How do I know it's this thing that I want, but it's, so sometimes we have to have an ear. Again, that's the power of this aspect of story. And that's the power of having a village. They say it takes a village to raise a child, but it takes a village to raise a woman. So we have to have.
That's true. That's true.
We have to have communities, that will, kind of tap us when we are, moving a different way. That'll, hold us again. Going back to that aspect, that'll, love us through these aches and pains and all of this self-doubt. And everything that we put on ourselves that is really not even ours. Sometimes we're holding things that's for somebody else. Listen, here's your bag, sister. Here's your bag, brother. I've been carrying this for a long time. Now this is yours. And acknowledging what is ours and what is not. But first and foremost, it's always starting out with recognizing that God is all there is. And so, and moving from the space. This is my space now. This is let me say that this is how I confront these kinds of things, how I move through these things, whether you want to call it God, whatever force, whatever essence, whatever we want to call this particular essence, the nameless one with many names, whatever we consider and call it, we have to move from a space by acknowledging that first all there is this kind of oneness. The separation is an illusion. So because this is where the guilt and shame and hurt comes from, when we feel like we are separated from this particular source, but it's an illusion. It really is. So we have to get to a space where we are not seeing ourselves as these compartmentalized beings, where we're seeing ourselves as true beings that's moving in divinity and holiness and oneness and good with a capital G. And it can be, it can be done. It takes work, but it can be done.
Yes, ma'am. Well, thank you, sis. I know that Sister Waikiki, she has a few more comments and wanted to end us out. Sister Waikiki, Queen Waikiki, you still there?
I'm barely hanging on. I'm barely hanging on because I am absolutely overwhelmed by emotion. I have been from the start of the call. I could barely get my questions out. But it takes a village. It takes a village to raise a woman. We are all birthing something, and we must honor ourselves enough to advocate for ourselves. We have to risk our own comfort zones to keep giving birth to the new us stage after stage until eventual perfection. I have to make sure that I am very conscious of the characters within my story that are serving me, and my circle must also serve me and allow me the space to create. I am one with the Master who creates powerful masterpieces, and therefore I am too one who can create those same masterpieces. Sister Sonny, I am so touched on a real level. You did something not only to me, but I can feel the energy in the call. You touched my soul. I have a whole list of questions that I know we're not going to be able to get to because unfortunately and fortunately, Mama Sonny already had some time that she had to be in the studio, and we want to be very, very respectful of her schedule. She's recording at this time, and so we promised her that we would get off in enough time for her to go back and take care of her business. But I just have to say thank you. I have to say thank you and have so much gratitude for what you have done to the women tonight on this call. I speak from the most sincere part of who I am. I can remember almost 20 years ago when I sat in this audience and saw you talking, and you actually did a piece from the perspective, it's my favorite one, of the tree. And the tree, it was the tree's response to what would happen and what the tree was thinking when the slaves were hanging from it. And it was the time like that, and then to see you come from right now, you are an absolute living legend. My grandchildren are going to read about you in their literature books. I'm so proud to the fact that I know you right now, and we have experienced this. We're all witnessing history taking place. And I know you're working on compiling all of your work, and she's working on bringing us all of her body of work so that she can keep that as a part of her living legacy. And so, again, that our grandchildren will be able to read about her as they read about Nikki Giovanni and Maya Angelou. You are a living example, sister. I'm very serious right now. You are a living example of what it means to stay authentic to your art and to your purpose. You've always had a story and you've always had a gift, but so many of us have to put that on the shelf in order to live. We get babies, we get families. We have to start working and moving into survival mode, as we talked about a little bit earlier today, and we forget about the art, but you were able to preserve it because this is your calling. And I am so blessed and honored to be in the space to be able to receive it as a recipient, to hear you. This has really, really touched my soul. I'm listening. I can't even respond fast enough to all of the text messages that are coming through with people who had questions, people who just wanted to share how they were being touched by your words. I have pages and pages of notes, starting from remembering that we can't be chicken-hearted.
Come on.
Internal dialogue. I mean, it's so many different things about how we have to talk ourselves into the hole, and now we got to take that same word and transform it and talk ourselves out of the hole. So, I mean, you just don't know. You don't know, Mama Sonny. Thank you so much. We are so grateful in this space, and I pray that God blesses your every word, that he blesses your heart, that he blesses your family, that he continues to bless your mission, because you are so worthy. We are so worthy, and we thank you on behalf of our community, on behalf of the community of black women, that you are one of us. You are in our story now. You are one of our characters. You're going to stay here. Hopefully we remember this, and we're going to take it to move forward. So thank you, thank you, thank you. It is 8:30. This is what these Queen Calls are all about, and this is going to hold me until next month's call. So thank you so much. May God bless you on every endeavor, and let us continue to follow Mama Sonny on her Facebook. You can find her as Sunni Patterson. She's Sunni Patterson on Twitter as well. And very, very soon she'll be going to New Orleans. She's a part of a wonderful stage production. And just continue to follow her in her social media. You're going to see all of the other things that she's doing right now. But the one that I'm looking forward to, honestly, is her and her compilation of all of her her great body of work is so much, and so I cannot wait to see that formally cataloged into Volume 1 and Volume 2 and Volume 3, and then the videos will come and accompany it as well. And so, I'm just very, very excited for all that you have for us. We want you to get back to work and want to be very respectful of your time. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Thank you, all of our callers, for joining us tonight. And remember, of course, that it takes a woman. A nation can rise no higher than its woman, so says the Honorable Elijah Muhammad. When you teach a man, you teach an individual. But when you teach a woman, you teach a nation. So thank you all, and may God bless us all tonight. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.